In the beginning, there was unity. Mankind spoke one language, one voice, one dream. They moved together as one people, strong, ambitious, unshaken. And in the vast plain of Shinar, they looked at the heavens above and said, "Come, let us build a city and a tower that reaches the sky." It was not a prayer, it was pride, not a cry for God, but a challenge to Him. They wanted to rise so high that heaven would no longer feel unreachable. They wanted a name that would echo across eternity, a monument not to their Creator, but to themselves. And so they began, bricks upon bricks. Fires burned day and night. The clang of hammers filled the desert air. Their sweat turned dust into clay, and clay into ambition. The tower began to rise, a pillar of man's arrogance piercing the clouds. From the heavens, God looked down upon them, and He saw what pride had built. He saw unity, but not the kind that heals. He saw a people united, not by love, but by vanity. If as one people they begin to do this, He said, then nothing they plan will be impossible for them. But man's power without humility leads only to destruction. And so, God descended, not with thunder or fire, but with confusion. Suddenly, voices turned to chaos. Words twisted into noise. One spoke, another stared. They could no longer understand each other. The builders dropped their tools. The forges went silent. Anger filled the air, and what was once one people became many. Languages were born, nations were scattered, and the great tower stood unfinished, a monument to the fall of human pride. That place was called Babel, because there, the Lord confused the language of the world, and from there, He scattered them across the face of the earth. But the lesson of Babel was never about language. It was about ambition without purpose, unity without humility, and progress without God. They wanted to build something eternal. But what they forgot is that no tower of stone, no monument of pride, can ever reach heaven. Only the humble heart can. Centuries later, kingdoms would rise and fall. Empires would build monuments greater than Babel ever was. And still, each one would crumble into dust. Because pride is the great destroyer. It blinds us to the truth, makes us forget the very source of our power. The moment man believes he no longer needs God, he begins building his own downfall. And the Tower of Babel wasn't just an ancient story, it was a prophecy, a mirror, a reflection of our world today. Look around. Humanity still builds towers, not of stone and clay, but of steel, technology, ego, and fame. We climb higher, we connect faster, we create more. But in our race to reach the heavens, we've begun to lose the ground beneath us. We've traded unity for competition, purpose for power, and faith for pride. We've built towers that touch the clouds, but hearts that no longer touch God. The people of Babel wanted to make a name for themselves. They didn't realize that greatness without humility leads to chaos without meaning. They thought their strength came from unity, but true strength doesn't come from what man can build. It comes from what God can bless. And that's the difference between a tower that stands and a tower that falls. Listen, every man, every woman, every generation builds a tower. Some build with love, some with pride, some with faith, some with fear. The question isn't whether you'll build, it's what foundation you'll build upon. If you build on ego, it will crack. If you build on envy, it will crumble. But if you build on truth, faith, and purpose, your tower will reach higher than any made of stone. Because heaven isn't a place you reach with bricks. It's a place you rise to with your heart. When God scattered the people, He wasn't punishing them. He was protecting them. He divided their tongues to unite their souls. He destroyed their tower to rebuild their purpose. He turned their pride into humility and their confusion into destiny. Sometimes God breaks what you build to save who you are. Sometimes He confuses your plans to protect your purpose. Sometimes the fall isn't your failure, it's your calling. The Tower of Babel fell, but its echo still rises every time man chooses pride over purpose. When we stop listening to God, when we believe we can build our own way to heaven, we repeat Babel's mistake. But when we surrender our pride, when we build with faith, when we use our gifts not to glorify ourselves but to lift others, then we build something eternal. Not a tower of stone, but a legacy of light. So ask yourself, what are you building and why? Are you reaching for heaven or are you reaching for your own name? Because every act of pride creates confusion, but every act of humility brings clarity. Babel was the fall of man's pride, but it can also be the rise of man's purpose. The fall was never the end. It was the beginning of understanding that to reach heaven, you must first bow before it, the Tower of Babel, the rise and fall of human pride. Not just a story from the past, but a message for the present, a warning for the proud, and a call to the humble. Because only when man learns to kneel can he truly rise.